strikes. And as far as we know, they're like a third-party IP protective service. Not sure if they're directly affiliated with Bungie or Sony or both of them. All I know is that I've been making content for Destiny 2 for years now and have never been hit ever until here recently. So is this a coincidence? Maybe. Regardless though, Bungie's already stated that tomorrow they're going to be having a meeting to figure out what the hell is going on. And I really do hope that meeting comes up with some stuff to fix this issue, because I do believe in the next 24 to 48 hours, I will receive yet another copyright strike. And guys, if that happens, that's it for us, boys. Now, that doesn't mean we can't get the channel back, but the only way, as far as I know, you can get the channel back is to push things legally. At that point, it turned into a legal situation. It's already getting there. Dude, we just want to play video games. I don't need an attorney. I don't want an attorney. But if any of you are attorneys and can represent me at a decent price, well, join our Discord. Hopefully, it won't come to that. Bungie's been very open about everything and addressing this, and the fact that they're saying that their own channel is being hit tells me something else is going on. The more worrisome thing out of all of this is if this is actually intentional. If this is Sony pulling this big corporate move to essentially say, hey, we have all content on lockdown. It kind of reminds me of like Nintendo back in the day. Like back in the day, you couldn't just record gameplay on Nintendo and just upload it to YouTube. You had to record it first, submit it to Nintendo. They would then approve it. Then you can upload it. It was a huge process, and even afterwards, you can still get a copyright strike, which is why for years, way back when, people were not uploading Nintendo content because they were worried of getting hit with copyright strikes. If this continues and more people in the community continue to get hit, yeah, no one's going to want to risk it. I was tempted this morning to go ahead and freeze my YouTube account, and I'm actually waiting right now on my YouTube partner to advise me on what to do. It's Sunday though. I think he's off for the day. Hopefully he'll get back to me here soon though, and if that's the case, we will put a freeze on everything, but that's also going to mean you're not going to see my account. Regardless, on our second channel, fellas, I will keep you all updated on the matter. I appreciate everyone who's commented. The meme right now is that Bungie is now sunsetting content creators. Kind of accurate though, right? We're going into the Destiny content vault. No!
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.
So some questions have been coming up. How good was the Witch Queen expansion? We're about a month in. We just played through the raid. We've seen the loot, the content, the campaigns, and now is the time to really talk about where Witch Queen stacks up in comparison to other expansions, most notably Forsaken. Today, guys, I do want to talk about this because we brought this discussion up on stream, essentially Forsaken versus Witch Queen, and which one of them has had more of an impact. Now, I understand Destiny has had a crazy journey so far, filled with both good and bad, ups and downs, content droughts, as well as these expansions like the Witch Queen, as well as Forsaken, where there's just so much to do. Now let me just take you back real quick to what 2017 was like. Everybody was just coming off of Destiny 1. Everyone was very hyped. But there was one thing that a lot of people said they wanted. They just wanted more Destiny. But what we got was not that. It was something completely different. And Destiny 2 at launch was probably the lowest of the low for Destiny 2, despite the numbers showing arguably the best ever. You had so many people trying out Destiny, especially considering it was coming to PC, but man, it fell flat. And that was essentially because at that time, for some unknown reason, Bungie was trying to mold Destiny 2 to be more casual, and really it missed the mark for what the Destiny community liked about Destiny and what we wanted out of a sequel. Now the launch was a mess, and it was still a mess even with Curse of Osiris. It started to turn around just slightly with Warmind. Now some things that made Destiny so different back then for my new light players that are just now tuning into Destiny for the very first time, back then we didn't have random rolls on our weapons. We also had high ability super cooldowns to have higher focus on gunplay instead of abilities, and I know that normally sounds really good, but it was ridiculous. Our abilities were also super weak. There was also 4v4 PvP game modes and things like Trials of Osiris instead of our normal 3v3, and of course we had double primaries. This really changed things up. Not only that, running through content when Destiny 2 first launched Literally only took like 1 to 2 weeks. One of the best ways to get exotics in year 1 was just doing public events. And that's all people were doing. Public events over and over, appealing to the casual player, but this took away all reason to do in-game activity. Also, the storylines were very underwhelming. Gaul was talked up to be this really big baddie, but honestly, there was really no connection there. There was no moment where we found respect for Gaul and what we have with our other antagonists. Curse of Osiris really wasn't much better with the Infinite Forest. And although aesthetically I do enjoy the Infinite Forest, it really didn't feel that infinite. And honestly, it was kind of boring. And Warmind was the start of things turning around, but the Worm God Zol was definitely a letdown. It should have been much better, considering the buildup of the Worm Gods. And essentially, how we were led to believe that Oryx, Savathun, and Xivu essentially got their powers from the Worm Gods. And I know Zol is the weakest of them, but you gotta admit that Zol, being just absolutely whooped in a single strike, considering he's a Worm God, was pretty anticlimactic. Now, of course, knowing what we know now, we have a better understanding of the Worm Gods. But back then, yeah, narratively, I wasn't that sold. Also, the business model back then was very different. We didn't have seasons. We didn't have a season pass. It was just DLC drops, and that's it. And you could basically do everything in like 2 weeks after a DLC would drop. And we understand that a lot of this had to do with Activision. They were pushing this model onto players through Bungie. They wanted the game to be accessible, casually friendly. They almost wanted to take a mobile game approach for a game that originally appeared to probably the most hardcore players out there. Now, to say that things had to change is an understatement. Things got bad. Players were dropping off tremendously. Overall daily population for Destiny nosedived. It was not looking good. Which is crazy when you look at Destiny now. Destiny is arguably in the best place it's ever been. Being almost a month inside of the Witch Queen expansion and the Season of the Risen, player counts are up. People are loving the game, loving the story, loving the grind, loving the mechanics, mostly. And gone are the days of low player counts, static roles, annoyingly long content droughts, the Eververse grind, the lack of content, the minimal story, the terrible public event grinding. But what changed? How the heck did we get here, of all places? From the absolute monstrosity that was Destiny 2 year 1. And calling it a monstrosity isn't an overstatement. People were leaving the game. Destiny content creators were calling it quits. Hell, we even quit. Dado even made a video stating why he wasn't uploading much back in January of 2018, pre-Warmind, saying that Destiny 2 is not the kind of game that needs the coverage that I do for it. And that the next 7 months of Destiny 2 are going to be even more uneventful. And that most Destiny 2 content is a bummer to make because all of it is complaining every day, and that's not fun anymore. I know, even Data was losing hope. And that's how it was back then. 7 months of absolutely nothing until June 5th, 2018. Bungie revealed the Forsaken expansion and gave us teasers to the inevitable end of K6. Spoilers, by the way. Now, the reveal triggered this domino effect throughout the community. A lot of it was thanks to the marketing behind this expansion. People suddenly cared again because Bungie had the balls to kill off everyone's favorite character. Kay was the only real relatable character back then, and he was the comedic relief. He had 2 fantastic voice actors in both Nolan North and Nathan Fillion, and everyone loved Kay. When we got into the expansion, when we saw it firsthand, when we experienced it, finally, this sent ripples through the community. People weren't only talking about the game itself and what Bungie is doing to fix the state of the game, but they were also just pissed off that Cade died. Everyone wanted to avenge him. And understand, up until this point, Destiny 2's story was pretty weak. So that was the first domino, the narrative domino, that really started to topple things over. Now, massive changes hit the game when Forsaken released. And I'm talking true game changers, fellas. You want to talk about a game that felt completely different from year 1 to year 2? Destiny was a different game leading into Forsaken. It was so big, it was one of the few times Bungie actually dropped the sandbox updates before the expansion. That's how big of a change it was. Within a single week, we got random roles back. I remember making my first video of an SMG. I think it was Trackless Waste, going, yo, this is what makes Destiny Destiny. And it was simply because we finally got random roles. Therefore, terms like meta and god roles started to become used again finally. The other big change, special weapons were separated from heavies. And Bungie even took it a step further. They allowed us to slot on double specials if we so wanted. Whether we wanted to slot it in the kinetic slot or the energy slot, it didn't matter. If you wanted to rock 3 shotguns, go right ahead. This change right here was more significant than even the Destiny 1 layout, because back then, you could only rock a special weapon in the energy slots or your secondary slots. Also, PvP went back to 6v6. We got 4 new maps, 5 on PlayStation, a new mode called Breakthrough. There was no longer this double primary team shooting. Abilities were also being used a lot more because we had things like the Go Fast update earlier that year. Supers and movement felt a lot better. And to top it all off, Bungie introduced weapons called pinnacles. Oh, these were some weapons that made everybody body's mouth water. Redrick's broadsword, Luna's howl, not forgotten. They were super strong and absolutely crazy inside of Crucible. There's also other subtle changes, like the leveling system change. And this was actually the beginning for how leveling was done to even this day. Powerfuls were introduced as weeklies for running playlist activities, no more grinding public events, as well as the introduction of Prime Ingrams. Bungie also introduced titles, badges, and of course the collections. And I know some of this is more relative to the hardcore players, but it was very nice. Another big change, Gambit. This was the first PvPvE mode. And man, look, we talk junk about Gambit now, but back then, people loved it. We talk about it all the time, how we were at GuardianCon, and I couldn't even get a single game of Gambit because so many people were in line all day long just to play one game of it. Now the subclasses. This is where things got crazy. We got 9 subclass branches and supers, one for each class for each element. Titans got Code of the Commander, Code of the Devastator, and Code of the Missile. Warlocks got Attunement of Vision, Attunement of Control, as well as Attunement of Grace. And Hunters got Way of the Wraith, Way of 1,000 Cuts, and Way of the Current. Overnight, the subclass layout and meta changed. Suddenly you had people getting their super back instantly with Blade Barrage and Shards of Galanor. Noble War was destroying everything. And Ursa Furiosa in the beginning was quite broken, especially in PvP. It was absolute mayhem. Now we actually got a new weapon type back then. Bows. This was a brand new weapon type that a lot of people didn't know how it would fit, considering this is a first-person shooter. Turns out, bows were fantastic, and they still are. I love bows. We got a new enemy faction called Scorn, and destination-wise, we got 2 new locations. The Tank of Shore, and the first ever in-game location, the Dreaming City. Now, the Dreaming City is still a favorite amongst many in the Destiny community. And here's some reasons why the Dreaming City was so great. It was an in-game location, the only of its kind. You had to grind levels even after finishing the campaign to be able to stand a chance here or in the Blind Well. Secrets. Tons of secrets and hidden stuff everywhere. You had tinctures, which allow you to see platforms, which would lead to chests, shortcuts, or portals to the Ascendant Plane. Also, just exploring the Dreaming City was beautiful. And then, of course, the Ascendant Plane, which changed every week and had a brand new Ascendant challenge and was in a brand new location. There were Hamkara bones and eggs to find that led to rewards and lore. Blind Well was also pretty challenging, and it was the only way to get your supers unlocked at first. And high-power enemies were randomly around that you could defeat to reveal other secrets and chests. You would visit Mar every week and do the Oracle mission, and to this day, it's considered one of the best locations Bungie has ever made. Now, once the raid was completed, things started to change. We began to get curse weeks. The Taken appeared, and each curse week brought new things to the Dreaming City. Shadow Throne was the first